Welcome all in this lecture of biological physics. We are going to discuss about cells and different types of cells. And the content of the lecture is basically from two textbooks. The one is Molecular Cell Biology by Harvey Lodis and others, and the other is Physical Biology of the Cell by Rob Phillips and others. So at first we will discuss a little bit of introduction of biological physics or biological systems in general. So biological systems of course follow the rules of chemistry and physics, but biology itself is a historical science, as the forms and structures of the living world today are the results of billions of years of evolution. Through evolution, all organisms are related in a family tree, extending from primitive single celled organisms that lived in the distant past to the diverse plants, animals, and microorganisms of the present era. So, in this sentence, the important things are that is evolution. Evolution, we can say, that is nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. This sentence was coined by Dobzhansky. So this is a famous sentence or famous quote, that is nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. So evolution is one of the important topic of biological science. Through evolution, that is through this method, all organisms are related in a family tree. I will show you the tree. So all organisms are related in a family tree, extending from, that is which extends or which starts from the primitive single cell organisms that lived in the distant past, that is when the earth was created at that time. So these organisms, single celled primitive organisms, lived at that time, and through the process of evolution, ultimately from those organisms, the plants, animals, or microorganisms that we see in the present era, those are created. Now let me see you, that is a family tree. So this is the tree. This portion is the bacteria. This portion is archaea, and this portion is eukaryota or eukaryotes. And bacteria and archaea, they are commonly known as prokaryotes, and these are eukaryotes. This portion belongs to eukaryotes, and these two portions, bacteria and archaea, belongs to prokaryote or prokaryotic cells. I will later discuss on it, but there is some difference between bacteria and archaea. Although bacteria and archaea falls in the prokaryotic category, but there are some differences that I will demonstrate later on. But this particular tree is known as the family tree, and this tree shows the linkages between the primitive single celled organisms that lived in the distant past to the diverse plants and animals and microorganisms of the present area, means basically eukaryotic cells. So bacteria, archaea, these are prokaryotic cells, and these are the eukaryotic cells. You see that animals, plants, fungi, all these are belong to the eukaryota. And bacteria, for example, this type of bacteria, cyanobacteria, thermus. So these are the bacteria or prokaryotic cells, and in archaea, these are different types of archaea present. Now for this particular family tree, there are some particular rules that we have to know, that is all living organisms descended from a common ancestral cell. I have already talked about that. That is, all living organisms of the present era that we can see in the earth, all living organisms descended from a common ancestral cell. All organisms from simple bacteria to complex mammals probably evolved from a common single celled ancestor. This concept is very important. That is, all things evolved from a common single celled ancestor. You see the sentence single cell, that means it consists of a single celled ancestor. This family tree depicts the evolutionary relationships among the three major lineages of organisms. Three major lineages means that is bacteria, archaea and eukaryotes. So there are three major lineages of organisms. The structure of the tree was initially ascertained from morphological criteria. So there is a particular criteria for this family tree. Creatures that look alike were put close together. So this is the criteria. So again I am repeating this. Creatures that look alike were put close together. That means here the distance of the line, that distance actually depends on the similarities or dissimilarities between the creatures. So if the distance of the line is short, that is two creatures are very close together, that then it means that they are alike. They are very alike. For example, you see that is these two creatures, alpha purples and gamma by beta purples, they are very close together. Similarly, different organisms here, if they are very close, then it means that they are similar to each other. So there is some difference between this one and that one. There are so much difference. For example, you see that is animals and plants. Animals and plants, there are some differences. So here distance matters. Distance, that is the lines, distance of the lines, that is related to the similarity or dissimilarity between the creatures. More recently, the sequences of DNA and proteins found in organisms have provided more information-rich criteria for assigning the relationships. The sequence of the DNA and proteins found in the organisms, they actually provide the criteria for assigning the relationships between the creatures. The greater the similarities in these macromolecular sequences, that is, if you consider the sequences in protein and DNA, so the greater the similarities in these macromolecular sequences, the more closely related organisms are thought to be. So the organisms are close or not, that is governed by the sequences of the DNA. So that sequence is the important part that defines the similarities or dissimilarities between the creatures. Now all biological systems are composed of cells containing the same types of chemical molecules and employing similar principles of organization at the cellular level. So this sentence is very important, that is, all biological systems are composed of cells containing the same types of chemical molecules. We will discuss later in a lecture about the chemical molecules of life, that is how our life is composed from the chemical molecules. So cells contain similar types of chemical molecules and employing similar principles of organization at the cellular level. That is, activity of the cells is also of similar type. Although the basic kinds of biological molecules have been conserved during the billions of years of evolution, that is, molecular kinds of the molecules are same, the patterns in which they are assembled to form functioning cells and organisms have undergone considerable change. So basic molecules are same. So what has been changed? the patterns in which they are assembled, that patterns has been changed, and due to the change of the pattern, or we can say that is due to the change in the sequence of the macromolecular assembly, that is proteins or DNA. So due to the change in the sequence in the DNA, different organisms created. We now know that genes which chemically are composed of deoxyribonucleic acid or DNA ultimately define biological structure and maintain the integration of cellular function. So DNA is responsible, or DNA ultimately defines the biological structure. Many genes encode proteins. Many genes encode proteins, the primary molecules that make up cell structures and carry out cellular activities. So, to form the cell structure or to carry out different cellular activities or the function of the cells, to control the functions of the cell, proteins are needed, and these proteins, how protein is created? Protein is created from the genes, because genes ultimately encode proteins. Alteration in the structure and organization of genes or mutations provide the random variation that can alter the biological structure and function. So how biological structure can be changed, or function of the biological systems can be changed? If we change the structure and organization of the genes, because DNA sequence is the main important, we have already told about that. So if you want to change the biological structure, then you have to change the structure and organization of the genes, or mutations are needed. Entirely new cellular structures are rarely created. So although there is some change in the structure of the DNA, because while the vast majority of random mutations have no observable effect on a gene's or protein's function, many are deleterious and only a few confer an evolutionary advantage on the organisms. In all organisms, mutations in DNA are constantly occurring. This is very important. That is, in all organisms, mutations in DNA are constantly occurring, allowing over time the small alterations in cellular structure. So, in a particular span of time, what will happen? There will be a small alterations in cellular structures and functions that may prove to be advantageous. Entirely new cellular structures are rarely created. More often, existing cellular structures, undergo changes. We already said that is mutations in DNA are constantly occurring. So existing cellular structures undergo changes that better adapt the organisms to new circumstances. It may happen that is there is some new circumstances, so to cope with the new circumstances there is some change in the cellular structures. Now another important thing is that multicellular organisms, including the human body, consists of closely interrelated elements that no single elements can be fully appreciated in isolation from the others. So in multicellular organisms like human body, I will also discuss a topic about multicellular organisms later on. But in multicellular organisms, there is some interrelated biological elements. So how they are interrelated? Organisms contain organs. So this line is very important. Organisms that contain organs. Organs are again composed of tissues. Tissues consist of cells, and cells are formed from molecules. So this is the interconnection of the biological system. This is very important sentence, that is again I am repeating. Organisms contain organs, organs are composed of tissues, tissues consist of cells, and cells are formed from molecules. The unity of living systems is coordinated by many levels of interrelationship. Molecules carry messages from organ to organ and cell to cell, and tissues are delineated and integrated with other tissues by molecules secreted by cells. Generally, all the levels into which we fragment biological systems interconnect. So, there is interconnection between different parts of the biological system. So, this is the relationship between different types of interconnected system, that is organs, tissues and cells, they are interconnected with each other. Here I can show you one figure, that is suppose this is our hand and this is the skin of our hand. So, skin is a organ, and if you magnify a particular portion of our skin, so it will look like this. So, you see that these are the tissues, thus tissues are interconnected. If you magnify the tissue, then you will observe the cells, and these cells are interconnected by desmosome, and if you magnify this particular interconnected position, then you will observe different types of intracellular attachment proteins and cell-cell adhesion protein, multi-adhesive protein. Basically, they provide the adhesive property of the cells. As cells are interconnected, so there should be some adhesion that will connect the cells and they will form the tissue, and interconnected tissues, they will again form the organ. So, here skin is the organ and these are the different parts of the skin. Now, I will discuss about this fact, that is to learn about biological systems. However, we must examine one small portion of a living system at a time. The biology of cells is a logical starting point because an organism can be viewed as consisting of interconnecting cells. We have already demonstrated that is biological systems are interconnected through cells, tissues and organs. So, as cells are the basic building block, so we should study about the cells, which are the closest thing to autonomous biological units that exist. The last common ancestor of all life on earth was a single cell, and at the cellular level all life is remarkably similar. This is very important sentence, that is at the cellular level all life is remarkably similar. All cells use the same molecular building blocks. Similar methods for the storage, maintenance and expression of genetic information, and similar processes of energy metabolism, molecular transport, signaling, development and structure. So, there is a remarkable unity in the living organisms. Although earlier we have shown that we can divide the living organisms into different parts, for example prokaryotic cells, eukaryotic cells. There may be some differences even in even if you consider different eukaryotic cells, there will be difference in the DNA sequence. So, there is differences, but there is unity also. So, what are the unity? This particular sentence describes the unity in the biological systems. So, basically biological systems can be divided into prokaryotic organisms, that is single celled organisms without a nucleus, and eukaryotic cells with a defined nucleus. So these are the two categories. Another thing that is a particular phase will be described in different parts of our biological physics, that is metazoans. So metazoans means multicellular animals. They are known as metazoans, and we will discuss about the multicellular animals later on. That is what do you mean by multicellularity, that we will discuss in some later lecture. Now let us discuss about prokaryotic cell. We have already said that is we can divide the organisms in three different categories, basically two different categories, that is prokaryotic and eukaryotic. In prokaryotic cells there are again two subsections, that is bacteria and archaea. So now we will discuss a little bit about prokaryotic cell structure and function. So biological universe consists of two types of cells, prokaryotic and eukaryotic. Prokaryotic cells such as bacteria consist of a single closed compartment that is surrounded by a plasma membrane. So the cell is like a single closed compartment that is surrounded by a plasma membrane and lack a defined nucleus and have a relatively simple internal organization. Eukaryotic cells contain a defined membrane bounded nucleus. So this is the difference. You see that prokaryotic cells lack a defined nucleus, whereas eukaryotic cells contain a defined membrane bounded nucleus and extensive internal membranes that enclose the organelles. So prokaryotic cell structure is very simple, relatively simple internal organization, whereas in eukaryotic cells there are different types of organelles and extensive internal membranes enclose these organelles. So these are the differences between prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. Now prokaryotic or prokaryotes comprise two kingdoms, archaea and eubacteria. In recent years, a detailed analysis of DNA sequences from a variety of prokaryotic organisms has revealed two distinct kingdoms, the eubacteria, often simply called bacteria, and the archaea. So eubacteria and bacteria is similar. This is one of the category and archaea is another category. Eubacteria are single cell organisms. You have to focus on this phrase, single cell. This is a single cell organisms. They include the cyanobacteria or blue-green algae, which can be unicellular or filamentous chains of cells. So in figure 1.11 that illustrates the general structure of a typical eubacterial cell. So let us see the figure. This is the figure of a prokaryotic cell. This is the cell of E. coli. This is the picture or electron micrograph of E. coli, a common intestinal bacterium. So this bacterium lives in our intestine system. The nucleoid, this portion is known as the nucleoid, and this is in this figure, this part is the nucleoid, this one. So the nucleoid consisting of the bacterial DNA, say this nucleoid contains the DNA, is not enclosed within a membrane. So this is the important part. You see that in this figure, that is DNA is not contained or enclosed within a membrane. E. coli and other gram-negative bacteria, I will define later, that is what is gram-negative bacteria. So E. coli and other gram-negative bacteria are surrounded by two membranes separated by the periplasmic space. So periplasmic space and the cell wall, you see that is there are two membranes, one is outer membrane and another is inner membrane, and inside the outer and inner membrane there is periplasmic space. The thin cell wall is adjacent to the inner membrane. So cell wall is adjacent to the inner membrane. So this is the figure of a prokaryotic cell. Archaeal cells have a similar structure. So archaeal cells also have a same type of cell structure. Bacterial cells are commonly 1 to 2 micrometer in size and consist of a single closed compartment containing the cytoplasm and bounded by the plasma membrane. The genome is composed of a single circular DNA molecule. Many prokaryotes contain additional small circular DNA molecules called plasmids. Although bacterial cells do not have a defined nucleus, the DNA is extensively folded and condensed into the central region of the cell called the nucleus. We have already shown that is this DNA is folded and it is also known as the nucleoid. In contrast, most ribosomes are found in the cytoplasm. So in the cytoplasm portion of the cells, ribosomes are found. Some bacteria also have an invagination of the cell membrane called a mesosome, which is associated with synthesis of DNA and secretion of proteins. Many proteins are precisely localized within the cytosol or in the plasma membrane, indicating the presence of an elaborate internal organization. Unlike those in eukaryotes, bacterial mRNAs undergo limited, if any, processing. And because there is no membrane barrier between bacterial DNA and cytoplasm, this is a very important part. Listen carefully, that is because there is no membrane barrier between bacterial DNA and cytoplasm, there is no membrane outside of the DNA. That is why ribosomes are able to bind to an mRNA as soon as part of it has been synthesized by RNA polymerase. Thus in prokaryotes, transcription and translation occur contemporaneously. So this is the difference between the prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell, and this simultaneity between the transcription and translation happens as there is no membrane barrier to the DNA. Bacterial cells possesses a cell wall which lies adjacent to the external side of the plasma membrane. The cell wall is composed of layers of peptidoglycan, a complex of proteins and oligosaccharides. It helps protect the cell and maintain the shape. Some bacteria, for example E. coli, have a thin inner cell wall and an outer membrane separated from the inner cell wall by periplasmic space. I have already shown the periplasmic space in the figure. Such bacteria are not stained by the Gram technique. You cannot stain this bacteria by Gram technique. Stain means that is to apply some color by the Gram technique, and thus are classified as Gram negative. Other bacteria, for example Bacillus polymixa, that have a thicker cell wall and no outer membrane take the Gram stain. So we can stain this bacteria with the Gram reagent and thus can be classified as Gram positive bacteria. So depending upon the Gram technique, there are two different kinds of bacteria, Gram positive and Gram negative. In addition to DNA sequence distinctions that separate them from eubacteria, archaea have cell membranes that differ dramatically in composition from those of eubacteria and eukaryotes. So if you compare archaea and bacteria, so there is change in the DNA sequence. This is the first difference. Another difference is that difference in the membrane. The membrane of the archaea is different from the bacteria and eukaryotes. Many archaeans grow in unusual, often extreme environments that may resemble the ancient conditions that existed when life first appeared on earth. So this is very important fact. I am again repeating, that is why we say that is these organisms lived in the Earth when created. Many archaeans grow in unusual, often extreme environments that may resemble the ancient conditions that existed when life first appeared on Earth. For instance, halophiles, these are also known as salt lovers, require high concentration of salt to survive, and thermoacidophiles, heat and acid lovers, that and these archaea grow in hot sulfur springs. Hot means 80 degrees centigrade, where a pH of less than 2 is common. Still other archaeans live in oxygen free milieux and generate methane by combining water with carbon dioxide. So these are all about archaeas. Now I will discuss a little bit about eukaryotic cell structure and functions. So eukaryotes comprise all members of the plant and animal kingdoms as well as protozoans. Protozoans, proto means primitive and zoan means animals, which are exclusively unicellular and include fungi and amoeba. So these are the kingdom of eukaryotes. So eukaryotes comprise members of the plant and animal kingdom as well as protozoans. Protozoans means primitive animal, and protozoans which are exclusively unicellular and include fungi and amoeba. And eukaryotic cells are commonly about 10 to 100 micrometer across. Eukaryotic cells, like prokaryotic cells, are surrounded by a plasma membrane. So this is the similarity, that is, they are surrounded by a plasma membrane. Internal membranes that enclose specific subcellular compartments, the organelles, and separate them from the cytoplasm. So there are different types of organelles in the cell, and these organelles, there are some membranes that separate them from the cytoplasm. Plant cells and most fungal cells are surrounded by a cell wall that gives the cell a rigid shape and also allow for rapid cell expansion. There are different types of organelles. Many organelles are surrounded by a single phospholipid membrane, but nucleus, mitochondria and chloroplast are enclosed by two membranes. So some organelles are enclosed by a single membrane, and some organelles such as nucleus, mitochondria and chloroplast are enclosed by two membranes. And the details about the organelles will be discussed in some separate lecture. The organism that we most often encounter in our everyday life and can see with the naked eye are members of this eukarya or eukaryotes. This includes all animals, all plants, ranging from trees to moss, and also all fungi such as mushrooms and mold. And we have already discussed about the E. coli in some earlier lecture, and the traditional definition of a eukaryotic cell is one that contains its DNA genome within a membrane bound nucleus. Most bacteria and archaea lack this feature and also lack other elaborate intracellular membrane bound structures such as the endoplasmic reticulum and the Golgi apparatus that are characteristics of the larger and more complex eukaryotic cells. So these are the difference between the eukaryotic cells and prokaryotic cells. And cells come in wide variety of shapes and sizes and with a huge range of functions. Cells come in such a wide variety of shapes, sizes and lifestyles that choosing one representative cell type to tell their structural story is misleading. In figure 2.16, we show a Rogues gallery illustrating a small segment of the variety of cell sizes and shapes found in the eukaryotic group, all reference to the E. coli as standard ruler. This gallery is by no means complete. There is much more variety than we can illustrate, but this covers a reasonable range of eukaryotic cells. So let us look at the gallery. This is figure A, this is figure B, this is figure C and figure D. So what are these figures? Let me explain. that is figure A, is the protist Giardia lambia. You see the figure again. This particular figure A is the Giardia lambia. This one. Figure B. Figure B is the plant cell, C is the yeast cell, and D is the red blood cell. So B is the, again you see, B is the plant cell, this is the yeast cell, this is the red blood cell. And next, E is the fibroblast cell, F is the nerve cell, and G is a retinal rod cell. So this one is the rod cell, and F, this is the nerve cell, and E, this is the fibroblast cell. So these are the different types of eukaryotic cells, and that have been well studied by biologists. In this figure, it has been chosen a variety of examples that represent experimental bias among biologists, where more than half of the examples are human cells and the others represent the rest of the eukaryotic group. The vast majority of eukaryotes are members of a group called protist. A members of a group of protists, that is a figure A. Figure A is the Giardia cell that I have already shown you. This poorly defined group encompasses all eukaryotes that are neither plants nor animals nor fungi. So the main feature of this protist is that they are neither plants nor animals and fungi. Protists are extremely diverse in their appearance and lifestyles, but they are all small, ranging from 0.002 millimeter to 2 millimeter. Some examples of protists are marine plankton such as Emiliana huxley, soil amoeba such as Dictyostelium discoideum, and the lovely creature Paramecium, seen in any sample of pond water. So Paramecium is seen in some sample of the pond water. So these are the different examples of the protist. So protists are neither plants nor animals nor fungi. Another notable protist is the pathogen that causes malaria, Plasmodium falciparum. And in figure A, we have shown Giardia lambia. Giardia is a parasite known to cause diarrhea. So there are different types of protists, and they fall in the category of eukaryotic cells. Although protists constitute the vast majority of eukaryotic cells on the planet, biologists are often inclined to study cells more closely related to or directly useful to us. This includes the plant kingdom, which is obviously important as a source of food and flowers. Plant cells, I have shown in figure B, are characterized by a rigid cell wall. So in plant cells there is a rigid cell wall, often giving them angular structures like that shown in the figure. That is, again let us look at the figure. So this is the cell wall, this is the cell wall, this is a plant cell, and this small white portion, a large white portion, is the vacuoles. I will demonstrate about the vacuoles later. So plant cells are characterized by rigid cell wall, often giving them angular structures like that shown in the figure. The typical length scale associated with these cells is often tens of microns. So their length is tens of microns. One of the distinctive features of plant cells is their large vacuoles within the intracellular space that hold water and contribute to the mechanical properties of plant stems. So what is the function of the vacuole? Vacuoles hold water and contribute to the mechanical properties of plant stems. These large vacuoles are very distinct from animal cells, where most of the intracellular space is filled with cytoplasm. So in animal cell, the most of the cellular part, inner cellular part, is filled with cytoplasm, whereas in plant cell most of the part is filled up with vacuoles. Consequently, in comparing a plant and animal cell of similar overall size, the plant cell will have typically tenfold less cytoplasmic volume because most of its intracellular space is filled with vacuoles. So, most part will be filled with vacuoles. Hydrostatic forces matter much more to plants than the animals. For example, a wilting flower can be revived simply by application of water. So, if we put some water in a wilting flower, then it can be revived. Since this allows the vacuoles to fill and stiffen the plant stem. Among the eukaryotes, the group most closely related to the animal, as proved by ribosomal RNA similarity and many other lines of evidence, is surprisingly the fungi. So, fungi are closely related to the animals. Why? Because of the ribosomal RNA similarity in the sequence of the ribosomal RNA. The representative fungus shown in figure 2.16 is the budding yeast. So, let me show you the figure. The yeast cell is figure C. This one is a yeast cell, that is a fungi which is closely related with the animal cell. And this cell is the Saccharomyces cerevisiae or simply S. cerevisiae. S. cerevisiae was domesticated by humans several thousand years ago and continues to serve as a treasured microbial friend that makes our bread and provides alcohol in our fermented beverages such as wine. So, yeast is used to produce breads and wines. Just as E. coli often serves as a key model prokaryotic system, E. coli can be used as a model prokaryotic system. Similarly, yeast can be used to demonstrate a model eukaryotic single cell organism. So, yeast cell often serves as the model single celled eukaryotic organisms. Besides the fact that humans are fond of S. cerevisiae for its own intrinsic properties, it is also useful to biologists as a representative fungus. Of all the other organisms on earth, fungi are closest to animals in terms of evolutionary descent and similarity of protein functions. So, these are the similarity between the fungi and animals. So, these are all about the prokaryotic cells which we need to know, and I hope you have understood different types of cells. So, the essence of the lecture is that cells can be categorized mainly into kingdom, that is eukaryotic cells and prokaryotic cells, and prokaryotic cells again can be further divided between bacteria and archaea. And in this lecture I have also told about different varieties of the eukaryotic cells, prokaryotic cells and archaea, and I hope that you have understood all those points. And for further understanding, I request the viewers to go through textbooks, two textbooks. The first one, that is by Rob Phillips, and the other one is by the Harvey Lodis. And I thank you all who have listened my lecture.